This is Lizzie from Let Zoe Spoil You.
And Sagira from Sagira Salutes You. And together, we are Newbie versus Weeaboo. Sagira, Newbie.
Lizzie, Weeaboo.
It's Newbie versus Weeaboo.
Hiya!
Heya!
You're right.
I'm doing good. It's quite a nice day.
Good.
Doing all right.
Yes, the weather has turned out lovely.
And I'm going for my walk each day. I did 20 minutes. I was like, hey, look, my foot's getting stronger and I'm doing all right. Just got to keep increasing that and then maybe I'll be able to function like a normal human again.
I am currently tethered to my desk because I'm redoing all the Newbie vs. Weeaboo videos. Yay! I am re-uploading them so they're all in one convenient place and they all look lovely. So if you haven't heard our old videos, please go check those out. They're cool.
Yes.
I was re-listening to some of them as I was editing. I was like, we are quite comical. I mean, we might not make other people laugh, but we certainly make ourselves laugh.
There we go.
We are up to episode 13 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yeah, Angel Infiltration. This was a bit of a stressful episode.
Yes, it is.
Like,
Lots
everything
of
was
beeping
happening
and
to this one.
panicking. And lots of tapping. Oh my god, and the music's just like, damn, it's invading.
It was like just doom. Everything was doom. We're all doomed.
Yes.
It was a kind of a, how they're going to get out of this one scenario.
Yes, because it's a very different kind of angel invasion. It's like, the Avas can't really fight against tiny microorganisms. It's not really in their field of expertise.
Well, let's get into it because we can explain it as we go along. Because people are going, what do you mean? So, unless you've watched it, which you should be. That's the whole point of this podcast, is that you watch an episode and then come to us and we dissect it piece by piece. And we might put it back together. Depends how we feel. But let's start dissecting. So it's a busy workstation. They're all doing diagnostics on the Maji. And this is a whole episode on the Maji. Let's state that now, because I thought, I mean, it is about Ritsuko as well. We get to know her background and who she is. But yeah, we get to know a lot more about the Maji. Misoto comes up to see how Ritsuko is doing. She picks up a random coffee cup like you do and has a drink. Why would you pick up someone else's coffee? I don't understand.
She's not got exactly the greatest of manners. She's a bit of a slob. She saw it there and thought, fancy that, I'll have it.
And as they're doing their diagnostics, they find there is no abnormalities. Ritsuko, when she's in the toilet, says, no abnormalities. My mother's doing fine while I grow older with each passing day.
Yes.
And you think, what does this mean?
And you find out in the same episode. So it's one of those things, it's like, oh, they've given us a mystery. And they've actually given us the answer in the same episode. Shocking.
It wasn't something that you had to ponder for too long. The pilots all have to have showers, many a shower. And it's because they are now trying to see if the Avas can react to their bodies without the aid of a plug suit. So I'm guessing it's like more sensitivity and more accuracy and all that kind of stuff. But that explains the naked people in the opening.
Yes, because you are naked when you are in the womb. You don't have fancy suits feeding you like electronic signals. It's just you as you float around in the LCL fluidy stuff.
So we now explain why they're naked in the intro, because before it was just like, just get to see more of them. But no, there's purpose to everything. When they're all sat in their Avas, they choose Ray to do the test. And she moves her hand. But then the Maji has an inner conflict with itself. Ritsuko replies to this with, you really sense the personality of the person that built it. Misoto thinks that Ritsuko built it, so she thinks she's talking about herself. And she says, well, she got the system up and running, but it was her mother who did the theory and mainframe. So her and her mother worked on it together. Basically,
yeah. Her
mum was the brains and she was the practicality and hands. Then he gets some very retro computer sounds.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, that's such an 80s, 90s sound for a computer. They are talking about the damage to the building. They're saying that there's lots of corrosion going on.
Yeah.
And, you're kind of thinking, right, so we're getting to learn more about the building, just some day-to-day stuff. Why not?
Yep.
Let's learn about the building. But then we get a really long shot of the corrosion that's in the wall, and you're like, okay, they're making a big deal out of this corrosion. clearly we need to keep this in our minds. And then a little light show happens in the corrosion. You're like, ooh, what's the light show? Either there's many snipers or something.
There's something more to this corrosion. It's not just rust. It's not just mold. There's something else going on.
Something's trying to get in. And then the corrosion goes crazy and they start preparing for the invasion. And what's invading? An angle. A new form of angel has got inside. Finally, there's something inside the HQ. And Ray's Ava becomes in trouble. And it starts to... Well, they're like, oh no!
Because what you see is they're not the actual Ava units. They're the, proximity bodies? They're like fake bodies that they're using to run these data tests on. And if you look at them, you can kind of see that's what's underneath all that mechanical armour. They're stripped down cores as well, but they're like the dummy bodies. They call them dummy bodies. So they're obviously made of something semi-organic as well, because this new angel gets into Ray's ones first, because that was the first one they were testing out, and just starts running rampant like a virus. So it's like part real virus and part computer virus is now in this bioorganic compound.
I didn't know it was a different Ava. That's interesting.
Did you not see them? They didn't have heads.
No, I was too busy writing.
You saw them a lot. They don't have heads. They're just like weird brown semi-bodies with tubes coming out of neck stumps.
Yeah, I thought they looked different, but I wasn't paying that much attention. So there you go. Okay.
Yeah, they're not the actual Avas themselves.
This is the issue with writing down every little thing that comes up, is that you miss the visual.
Yeah.
Before it was like all visual, no theory.
I mean, that explains why they start launching the actual Avas out of the compound so they don't get infected.
So an AT field gets put up by the angel so they can't like fix anything. And it's like, nope, this is my corroding wall now. You cannot touch this. I made it. It's mine. And so that means they can't really do much about that. It just gets in. And everything goes into lockdown. And just as they're evacuating the room, the window smashes and all the fluid goes flying in. So, but no one's hurt. Everyone's okay.
They evacuate in time. Apart from like Mizuka, who's just kind of standing there for a moment. And Misato's like, move it, woman!
Gendo is informed. Now, naughty man, well, he's protected himself, really, isn't he? Yeah. He wants them to tell the government and the council that it was a faulty detector that made the alarm and not an angel.
Yes.
So he doesn't want people knowing that they've been infiltrated and that basically they're not professional enough to stop such a unique angel. So he's lying to everyone. And the angel, they say, is trying to get to Adam.
Yes, very close to Adam.
So they're trying to save Adam, but also they say to save Ava 1. They're like, what, not the others? And they're like, no, he's the important one, get him out. So they save Ava 1, and they're kind of about the others. So that's interesting, because you'd think that Gendo would want to save Unit 0, if anything.
Wow, as you kind of think, it's the actual Unit Ava 1 he's protecting, rather than the pilots, because he knows that the pilots have already been jettisoned, so they're all safe. But it's the Unit 1, which you learn from the next episode a little bit like more why.
So then this leads into part 2, which is called Lilliputian Hitcher. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, the Lilliputian Hitcher. Lilliputians.
Okay. What's that?
Lilliputians is the name of the tiny people from Gulliver's Travel.
Ah. So yeah, now you've said it, I've remembered.
Yeah. So it's basically they're tiny people are hitching. So it's kind of what the angel does. It's the little things hitchhiking around the place, being, hey, we're hitchhiking on your systems.
And then they find that the angel doesn't like oxygen. They're like, cool, get all the oxygen in there, stop it from corroding things, but in front of their eyes, it evolves.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you beat an angel that evolves every time you throw something at it? What do you do, Lizzie? What do you do?
You try and hack it back and convince it wants to live in peace. And do some weird jargon. So much science jargon. By the end of it, I was like, I'm just going to accept the science behind this episode.
Yeah. I was trying to write down everything that was said, but at some points I was like, I don't know. I'm not this way minded. It's pretty and it looks nice.
I mean, I'm definitely feeling the panic, and I'm feeling the, oh my goodness, you know, still edge of your seat, even though it's not a battle, it's just lots of people typing on computers, but it's very epic for people typing on computers.
I kept pausing it because I had to keep writing things down because I just got reams of notes here. But yeah, it was a very fast-paced episode, this one. It was just like, this happened, okay, onto this scene, and then this happened, and I'll tell you about my mother, and oh my god, everything's going wrong.
Yeah, panic, 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 panic.
So it's, if you will just watch it straight without pausing every 5 seconds, and yeah, it's probably a really quick, epic episode. But because there's a few times I had to rewind stuff to make sure I heard correctly, like when Sato and Ritsuko are underneath, when we get to that bit, but when they're underneath talking about the Magi in more detail, I had to keep rewinding it. I was like, what's the wording? What did you say? And it's like, oh, I'm getting really annoyed with Misato's voice at this point. But, you know, if we want to analyse this correctly, we need to make sure we get the facts. And that's the kind of dedication that goes behind these podcasts. We don't just sit and watch. I have to go through everything. This took me an hour and a half to watch 2 20-minute episodes.
There's quite a bit going on in these ones.
So the Angel seems to be more computer than anything else. It hacks into the mainframe and it's trying to get into the Magi, and they can't cut the power. It's stopping them from cutting off the power. So it just goes, haha, I'll keep going because all the power.
Yes. So basically, yeah, it introduces Melchior first. Yes, Melchior first.
Yes.
And hacks Melchior. And obviously, because the way the Magi work is they're 3 supercomputers with slightly different programming, and they're the centre of decision making. And then if all 3 computers agree on the same decision, thing is carried out. So you see why they use it for government and stuff. Should we do this in society? The consensus, and then they go with that plan. The Angel hacks into Melchior, and Melchior's like, I think it'd be a really good idea if we self-destructed and just blow everything up, destroy everything. They start obviously hacking Balthazar. Luckily, Ritsuko does some science wizardry, slows it down, but eventually Balthazar's like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's blow it up. All we need to do now is convince Casper that self-destruct is a great idea, and away we go.
But as you say, she does some stuff and gives them time, and they've got 2 hours. There's always time limits on these things, and we've got 62 seconds to do this. We've got 3 minutes to do this. We've got 2 hours to do this. So it's always under a time limit that these things have to get done. They have a meeting to find that the Angel is evolving and transforming to each situation. So this is where the brain team have to come in and go, what do we do? Misato thinks that they have to destroy the Magi, but Ritsuko is like, no, no, do not blow up my mother. Like, basically.
That's the computer that governs the new city and processes all the data for Nerve and the Angel and the Avas. So it's like,
Yeah, and she wants to kind of sort it out herself because she thinks in some way this is her fault. So she's like, but I will sort it. Do not blow up things. That's last thing that we should do. And they think that they should push the Angel to make a decision to either destroy itself or to coexist with the Magi. So those are the options. But I think coexisting is what they are aiming for.
Yeah.
And they have to be quick. But Ritsuko is like, I can do it. Go me. Ritsuko shows Misato and Maya. I think her name is Maya. Maya. And it's a tunnel full of the Magi hacks. That were written by a mother, so it's ways of getting around things and stopping things happening or getting past firewalls and all that kind of stuff. So
it's all like physical data, so no one can actually hack the hack, so no one can find these codes unless you physically crawl through the tunnels that, I mean, they set everything up like it's literally a giant brain, and so you can see all the pipes and all the wires or everything swirling around, so it looks like you're inside a human body. And there's physical post-it notes that have all the clues to how to deal with this system,
which is very clever. And then Ritsuko and Misato are doing techie stuff. They're trying to get to Casper, basically. And Misato says, tell me more about everything, because you tell me nothing, and we're best friends, and it's a one-way street. So Ritsuko explains that the Magi was the first prototype for personality transplant type OS. And this means, in layman's terms, that a person's personality is put into an organic computer so it can have cognitive thought, and that's the same system that they're using for the Avas as well.
Yes.
There's lots of organic stuff going on here.
Yeah, so it's like kind of that era with anime when you've got things like the cyberpunks, and this was the first of the new wave mechas, on things like bio-organic technology, which you see a lot coming through the anime, the kind of living computers and bioorganics, like synthetically created organic structures, but because they're made of synthetic materials, they can also carry computer programmings and could work like so they were trying to create an AI operating system for technology, but that also still kind of had cognitive reasoning and human personality and stuff. And this was the first test run of, okay, if you made a system that could think like a person, it could analyze things better and make more human decisions in a human society.
So rather than thinking of something as black and white,
Yeah.
like something's gone wrong, so let's blow it up, it thinks, well, actually, if we go try it this way, then we don't have to do that, and we can do it in a more peaceful way, sort of thing.
And more in a way that would help mankind rather than let them die. Rather than, okay, how could we preserve life? How can we make a decision that is emotionally satisfying? Can be, even if there's loss of life, there's still a positive outcome for who survives and stuff like that.
But from this, we learn that the personality that this Magi has is Ritsuko's mother.
Yeah.
And that's why she keeps referring to it and why it's so important to her. And she says, basically, that is as if it has her brain. And then she opens up Casper and there's a brain.
Yep.
Ooh.
There we go. Bioorganic.
Yes, an actual brain. Is it an actual human brain that they've
I always assumed, because obviously it can't be Risco's mother's brain because she doesn't have 3 brains. So I always thought it's one of these bioorganic constructs, and it is made to look like a brain so that the human element that might have to go in and do what they do can recognize the formation of a brain and know which areas to kind of network with and program with. So it kind of remains that human element. And
I mean, it could be her brain.
It could be her brain.
Purely for the fact that if they had 3 different brains, they were saying, she says later on that Casper is the most like the woman part of her mum's brain, which was sometimes the strongest part. So maybe they've stuck her brain in Casper.
Yeah, they could have stuck a brain in there. I always think of it as like there are synthetic brains pretending to be real brains, or that they just like cut up bits of the brain and stuck them in.
All possibilities. Because remember, Ritsuko built the machine. Her mother didn't. Her mother came up with the theories and all that kind of stuff, all the brainy things. She didn't actually build it, so...
No,
remember?
because her brain was...
Unless we meet Ritsuko's mother. Right? The angel breaches Balthasar. Everything is pressure. Oh, is it going to work? There's Ritsuko tippy-tapping on the laptop, trying to make sure that she has enough time, but she only has 1 second delay.
Oh, yes, because it's in Casper now.
Yes, is on its way to Casper. Well, yeah, it's in Casper. Just as it's about to take over, she manages to do her thing, and it stops, and it goes, all done.
All done. All good.
And it's everything fine. If only things happen like that.
Yeah.
Just boop, done. Boop, all better. Yay, no clean up. Awesome. And then we go back to the pilots who are still naked. Bless them, they've been sat the entire time. Their little pods. Naked.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, so they can't even get out of their pods because, well, they're naked. So they've just got to float around in that lake that they've been floating about in.
Ritsuko tells Misato her mother had 3 people inside her. So this is what we were talking about earlier. She was saying that she had the woman, the scientist, and the mother. And these 3 parts of her personality would always fight with one another to be the more dominant thing. And that's kind of where the 3 brains of the Magi comes from. These 3 personalities and these 3 strong
identities.
Yes, that's a good word. Identity. And it would just seem that in these, what I'm getting more and more from this is the love-hate relationships between children and parents.
Yes.
Every single person so far has had this kind of, I want your approval and your attention, but our relationship's so bad that I have to hate you in some way.
And this is why it's such a product of the 90s, because it reflects what was going on in Japanese society with the Lost Decade and Generation Zero and the whole new wave of kids that didn't know how to understand their parents because their parents were in that new phase of like, you know, the job loss and the parent youth divide widened in the 90s, and they couldn't relate with each other, and they ended up, because the adults couldn't understand children's decisions and the children couldn't understand adult decisions anymore, because it hadn't been like it been in the past. It hadn't been like, okay, so you respect your father, and then eventually you go up and you work for your father's company, and now it's like, well, my father is unemployed, or my father has committed suicide. Why should I respect adult? Why would I go down that path? I don't want to be in a job which I have to commit suicide for. I'm going to go off and rebel and do something else. So all these are reflecting relationships of the time period and that divide between youth culture and adults still trying to control the younger generation, but the younger generation are like, we don't listen the way we used to because we're kind of losing respect for you.
But in some ways they are kind of following the parents' footsteps. I mean, Shinji, although he doesn't want to be a pilot, he's doing it still to please his dad. Mitsuko became a scientist like her mother, and Misato joined Nerve just like her father did. So in a way they are following their footsteps, whether it's for the right reasons we don't know just yet, but they are following in their parents' footsteps.
They all are stuck in the situation where they're trying to rebel or get vengeance or not get justification by from their validation from their parents. But by choosing what they're choosing, they end up, you are respecting your parents, or you are getting your validation, you are still connecting. So there's that level of connection that even when you completely disconnect, you still find a way to find that connection again.
And from there we go on to episode 14. Sealy, the Seat of the Soul.
Yes.
And this is a sort of recap episode to catch everybody up on what's happening.
Yes, so every anime, I mean, it doesn't happen so much now, but, you know, back in the day, you could not have something like a 24-episode anime series without the recap episode. Every series had one, and you'd be like, I'm watching it, I know what's going on, but it was a staple of the thing. But in this one, the recap episode is literally only half the episode, and then it goes off to progress the plot later. But you do learn some important things from this.
Like, you do, yeah, like the name of the angels.
Yes, and also that the Sele is the name of the Council of Old Men. So that's the secret organization is called Sele, and it's the German word for the soul. So the Council of Men have called themselves the soul, the seat of the soul. So they think they are working towards protecting the soul of humanity.
Well, it opens with going back to the first episode when Shinji joined Nerve, and we find out here that it was the third angel that attacked at this point.
Yes.
And Shinji is the third child. Now, is that anything to do with anything, or is it just one big old coincidence?
I can't go too much into things. Right, so, well, I'll tell you the stuff that I've got for this episode, and then the things you want to go through will go afterwards, and I'll be able to say, you can find that out, you cannot find that out. So, we learn for the first time the names of the angels, and we find out that there was the third angel. Now, we're assuming that the first angel must have been whatever blew up the Antarctic in the second impact. But we're then thinking, so where is the second angel? So we don't know about that yet. Shinji is, the third children. Oscar is the second children, and Rei is the first children. Why they called them first children rather than first child, I'm just going to blur. So we get Angel 1. This is the first time ever I wrote notes down for this episode so that I could be able to read this all because I couldn't remember all of the angels' names. Sachiel is the third angel. The Japanese meaning is angel of water, and the traditional biblical meaning is the covering of God.
Yeah, see, I was going to look up all these meanings, but I was like, no, let the expert explain it.
Yes, I was going to say, like, don't worry, I've got this covered. I've done this before. I just had to find my notes. Okay, so the fourth angel is Samshiel, which is angel of morning, as in good morning, not crying morning, was a part of the heavenly host, and I think the Cherubian heavenly host, which is quite high level, but at the same time was one of the watchers. It's so complicated. There's so many choirs of heaven, and it all depends on which religious text you use to research your angel names, because in this they use the Hebrew and the Christian and the Islamic names for the angels as well.
And the fourth angel was the big dong-looking one.
Yes.
Big purple thing.
And after Adam and Eve left the garden, That was the angel that was put in charge of guarding it, so nothing came in and out of it. But it was also meant to be quite monstrous, and according to the Book of Enoch, was one of the fallen. I'll come back to Book of Enoch later. So the fifth one was Ramiel, which means thunder and divine visions. Ramiel's job was to guide the souls of the faithful back to heaven. And again, was another one of the watchers, and according to the Book of Enoch, another one that fell.
And he was the big QB diamondy thing.
Yes. I say he, angels don't really have genders, so they should be really they.
They.
So, yeah, they. Then the sixth is Gaghiel.
Which was the underwater one.
Yeah, and it's literally the angel of fish.
That makes sense then.
There we go, yeah. Then there's Israfel, and Israfel was a twin angel of poetry, music, and dance, which is why they used music and dance in that episode. But also, if you go by the Hebrew text, was also the angel that was the trumpeter that sounded the coming of the apocalypse.
And also there's two of them.
Yeah.
So
they were,
that makes sense for that whole episode. That's really clever.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Then eighth angel is Sandalphon. I can't pronounce this one. Sandalphon. And that is the angel of embryos, which makes sense.
Yep, it was in the volcano at that point.
Yes, and was meant to be considered like a godfather and the protector of unborn children. And it was like the inaugurator of God, something like that. But it's another big weird name. Then there's 9, which is Material, which is the angel of rain.
I'm glad you're pronouncing these because I wrote them all down. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this and sound graceful. Yep. And that was
it's the one with the legs and the crying eyeball.
Oh, the spider.
Yeah, spider, but it meant rain because, tears, rain, that kind of thing. Then the 10th is Sahaquiel, which is the giant one that floated up above, and that was the angel of skies. The 11th one, the one that Gendo says doesn't exist, even though it does, that's Iriel, which is the angel of terror. And I always like that idea because its infiltration, they're like the nanites and stuff, is almost like a terrorist attack. That whole episode is like, it's hacking us. There's been an attack on the thing. But it brings fear and terror.
Did they actually say the name of that one? Because I didn't remember reading it because I wrote down everything I saw.
Oh, maybe I just...
How dare you? How dare you jump ahead?
Well, I don't know if they name it later. I just remember getting like my lists out of angel names and going, right, it's been 11 so far. Let's do this. So they quote in this episode the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's always been the theories. Okay, I'm not a historian, I'm not a theologist, and I'm definitely not religious in any way. So some of this stuff, disclaimers here, is stuff that I don't know about. I only know vaguely. So there was always this idea that Neon Genesis Evangelion was a modern reinterpretation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient, I believe, Hebrew text. Are they Hebrew? I don't know. Jewish. I think they were in Hebrew, but they're also written about so many different languages. And I did type it up to see what it was about, and I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be able to read all this information for this podcast because I'm just not religious. You can't even I couldn't even quote like the Bible at you apart from like some obvious things. So let alone the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were meant to be added bits from the Bible that were found separately, but they were also, because there was proof that religious texts were written and existed. So it's physical religious stories and prophets and psalms handed down, and they're really old. And one part of it is the Book of Enoch, and the Book of Enoch is a Hebrew text, I believe, and part of what the Book of Enoch tells you about is kind of like the story of how one of the apocalypses happened, and it was about how demons and giants fell to earth. And then the other thing, it was that it details certain angels that also fell at the same time. So there's a lot of this going on in Evangelion because it's all about angels and giants and demons, and who is actually who in the story. Yes, the angels have been named angels, and the Avas are giants, so who's the demons in this story? But is that really true? Are we just believing that those are the definitions because that's what it's telling us? It could be that the angels are actually demons, mankind as angels and, Avas are giants, or, it could be any way round. But at the moment, we're believing that the angels are angels, but also there was these giants that fell to earth, and there was demons that fell to earth at the same time. And as you go through Ava, some of this religious theology becomes more apparent. But at this point, it's just worth knowing, because Gendo says, it's all going according to the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Dead Sea Scrolls could be thought of as prophecy, obviously, and also the idea that it had events that may have happened before. So you think of the first impact, and we don't know much they never really talk about the first impact, but from our own knowledge of history, there was a giant meteor that apparently wiped out the dinosaurs. Whether or not it wiped out the dinosaurs or not, or it was a geological factor, but there's always this idea, or was the first impact the Big Bang that created our universe? Angels and God would have been around for the Big Bang. And then it also brings on ideas of Greek mythology, and the fact that the first things that appeared on the earth were the Titans, and then the Titans were just smooshing around going ha 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 ha, until the gods came into being, and Zeus was just like, we're putting you guys in Tartarus because you're being dicks, because all you do is stomp around and kill people. So they got rid of the Titans, which are giants, and then the gods had their range until mankind stopped believing in them. If I knew more about theology, history, mythology, I could put it all together, because it's old translations of, it's majority, I think, Hebrew and Jewish, Islamic, Christianity, and Greek mythology.
Right. No wonder we're all so confused. That's obviously really important, the fact that they all have names now and that they all mean something. And again, going back to the religious part of this, we also learn that Rey's first fight is with the fifth angel. That was the first time she actually went out and fought. So why was she so bloodied up in the first episode?
Because of that accident in her test. Because you notice, in this one, when they shot out the plugs in the previous episode, they were in a room that was filled with liquid. So they kind of floated out, and then they were deposited in a lake. So there was kind of a lot to cushion any impact. When they did it, when her first Ava activation happened, they just kind of shot her out, and she bashed into all the walls and crashed on the floor. Imagine a plane crash. You're not going to walk away from a plane crash unscathed. That's why she was totally bashed up, because she got thrown all over the freaking place. And
we saw that in an earlier episode.
Yeah.
So the first person to fight an angel was Shinji then?
Yes.
Yeah. And then Asuka arrives with the attack of the sixth angel, which we know. With Rey and Shinji's relationship and the way that they're so similar, which is another thing that comes up in this episode, why is Asuka the second child? Why isn't Shinji the second child?
I don't know if you find that out. I don't know.
We
I've never
haven't
really
found out in this
questioned
episode.
it. I always just assumed that they kind of brought him in later, because Oscar has been training for this. And there's some kind of system that helps identify which children should be used. She's been trained and she's been in Germany all this time. So it was only when the angels started appearing again that they were like, we really need our other child that's been identified to fight over here.
Because it just seems like, with the way that Shinji is treating everything, they always knew he was going to be a pilot. So wouldn't he be one or two?
There's got a reason, but I can't remember it right now. Maybe it turns up in an episode. I hope.
We find out. Okay.
Yeah. Because what's interesting about this episode is that Rey can sync with Unit 1 pretty well. It's not as perfect as how Shinji syncs with it, but she goes in there and is able to operate Unit 1.
But from the flashbacks and the catch-up, we cut to the Old Man Council.
Council of
Gendo... Old Man Council. Gendo tries to keep fooling them, saying there was nothing wrong here. The alarm, it was defective and blah. And the others are like, yeah, all right. So they know that something's happened, but they're just going, all right, Gendo, whatever you say.
Yeah.
And then we go into part 2, which is called Weaving a Story. We start off with a really nice poem-esque soliloquy type thing from Rey. We don't see it's Rey, but if you know the voice, you know it's Rey.
Yeah.
She's talking about the way that she's feeling and how things make her feel. And she says, with water, something that feels nice, Commander Akari.
Okay, It's
Why would you relate those two things?
You'll find out more. With Ray, you'll just have to wait until you find out more. But at this precise moment in time, she is having a bit of her weird kind of existential crisis or internal crisis or a weird, who am I? What am I? Why am I here moment.
Well, it's because she's inside Unit 1, isn't it? Because Shinji has a similar experience when he's in Unit 0.
I mean, because at first you don't know why. She's just literally, who am I? What's going on? She's losing her identity.
And we see the Ava out of its suit at the end of that little bit, how we saw it.
Yeah, you see it's like
of it.
It's skull and eyeball.
Yes, exactly. And it's more organic than we could ever imagine.
Yes, looking very Frankenstein's monster.
Ray's in Unit 1, and they're saying that Unit 0 and Unit 1 personnel patterns are very similar. Shinji and Ray.
Quite similar.
All the questions that I had from before. And then they're saying that Unit 2 isn't as compatible as the other two Avas. Because they're like, oh, Asuka, you don't want to pilot the other ones, do you? You just want to stay in this one. She's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. But it's actually because she's not compatible.
Yeah.
But they're not telling the pilots this. So there's a secret being kept from them.
They're creating, is this the bit when they say they're creating the dummy system? Which you kind of assume is that they're trying to find a way to create one of those AI operating systems so that the Avas could be sent out without a pilot.
Which I guess would be safer.
Yeah.
And it's just funny with Ray and Shinji, both, the first thing they say when they get in is, I can smell them.
Yeah, exactly. It smells like Shinji. It smells like Ayanami.
Exact same reaction. And then like Ray, Shinji starts to feel Ray. However, there is a contamination within it, and then Unit 0 goes crazy again.
So you find out
it's a very unstable unit.
Yeah, you find out more about this idea of contamination, and it's not just contamination by germs in it, it's psychological contamination.
Well, isn't that what they were testing in the last episode?
And
yes, because you were saying...
it plays into it more. And it's the contamination of something they don't want imprinting on the consciousness of the Avas. So they're all kind of like, they've all imprinted on their own one, but they're doing tests to see if others can imprint on the others. But the Avas don't like the things that they don't want in them. Unit 0, being one of the first ones created, well, being, the prototype, is very, very, it's more stubborn than the other ones. And it doesn't like this imprinting of another consciousness on it, which you suddenly start getting the idea of they're trying to stop contaminating, and the Avas don't want the consciousness being imprinted on them. Do they actually have their own consciousness, which is being overwritten by the pilots so they can be used as tools? So, because we already know they're bioorganic, if they're already living creatures, then they could have their own personalities, but you don't know this. But Unit 0 is definitely, no, you are not going to overwrite me. I'm going to try and get this thing out of my head, because it always looks like it's trying to get something out of its head. But over time, it has imprinted with Ray. So Ray is its consciousness. But again, it tries to, instead of Shinji imprinting on AV Unit 0, AV Unit 0 and Ray's consciousness starts imprinting on him, which is why all the images of her are like shoved in his face. And then it goes a bit like, I don't like this. And then it gets a bit triggered.
And it goes berserk, and then it starts punching at Office Bit. And Ray's just not fussed at all. She just stood there watching the whole thing because she knows that it's not going to hurt her.
Yeah.
I guess. But Ritsuko, on the other hand, is 100% certain it's coming after her.
Yep. And you find out why later.
So there's some conflict there. They decide to revert the Unit 0's personnel data back to Ray's so they can figure out what's going on. That'll calm it down. Back to hospital, where Shinji is often now. And he hates it. He hates being there. He's like, I hate this ceiling.
Yeah.
And then we have a little tiny scene of Asuka, who wants to figure out Ray, because she just knows nothing about her. And clearly Asuka is one of those people that she needs to know everything. She doesn't like that people could be so secretive. I mean, Ray isn't keeping anything from her. She's just not telling her anything.
Yeah.
She's not being secretive. She's just keeping herself to herself. And Asuka doesn't like that. She likes people to be upfront and this is who I am. And Ray is not. We then go to Gendo and the deputy commissioner or commander, and they talk about their projects. So Project Adam is going along swimmingly.
Yep.
They're happy with Project Adam. And then they say, how is the Spear of Longinus?
Longinus.
How's that
I
going?
always called it the Lance of Longinus, but maybe it's now been retranslated as the Spear of Longinus. But a spear would make more sense considering what it is.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, Ray is carrying that out now, and the whole episode finishes with Unit 0 walking along with a trident type thing in its hand.
Yeah, with a spear. So do you know what the Lance of Longinus is in history or the Bible?
Again, I obviously know everything, but you tell the audience because, I'm so brainy. I know everything.
Some of these, like, do you know things? Just edit them out so it's just me going, and here is the answer straight away. So what's important is this thing. So the Lance of Longinus, I always call it the Lance of Longinus, even though it's a spear. It was the spear that one of the guards used to poke Jesus to see if he was dead. So,
I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to. It's just your action with it. So you can see.
So basically, yeah, one of Pilate's men, one of the soldiers, stabs Jesus with it. I think they use it to slit his belly.
See,
to see.
stab sounds less comical than poke.
Poked, okay, yeah. So it was the spear used to stab Jesus on the cross to make sure he was dead.
Right, got it. Okay.
So it's got a lot of pokes Jesus, gave Jesus a poke.
Good thing you didn't write the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah. If I did, it'd be a hell of a lot gayer.
And the Technicolor Dreamcoat was every colour.
Yes, exactly. It would have been the first ever Pride mascot, Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And all those musical numbers would make sense now. Not that those were actually in the Bible, but in my head. So that's the story I know the best, thanks to a musical.
There you go. See, it's educational and entertaining.
But you do now get the idea that actually Ray does have some secrets that she isn't telling, because obviously she's on this secret mission with the Lance of Longinus and potentially heading towards Adam. You don't know.
Yes, indeed. We don't know how soon before that she was told about it. I mean, it could be that they've been training her up to do this whole time, or it could just be they went, here, Ray, carry this. And they just gave it. She'd be like, all right.
Okay, yeah, I literally do what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not entirely sure how in advance she had this information. But yeah, now she has got this huge secret that she won't tell anyone because she's practically a robot in terms of her personality at the moment. Well, it is nice when we get to see a bit more of Ray, like that whole poem thing, soliloquy thing. That was quite nice just to have a whole section of Ray just talking about.
She does have feelings. She just doesn't always know how to relate them to others or equate them with what's going on. And she does have likes and dislikes. So she's got her own. She's got a soul. Because, it's so easy to think that she's just a soulless doll, which was obviously a trope that happened a lot in anime, like the soulless doll that you can imprint on. But no, it's there. She does have soul and personality, I always felt.
She's becoming more human-like. And then we're on to the next episode. We're getting along swimmingly. We're trotting on.
Oh,
all very interesting.
Getting excited. We're getting closer and closer to the things that I want to be like, I want to know how you're going to react to them. Ah!
The gasp moments.
Yeah. Oh, there's some good moments. All the moments that you go, what the fudge? Because you've noticed things are getting a little more surreal.
Yes, very much so.
And then it's just like, oh, I can't wait. There are some truly like, what did I just see moments.
What did I witness?
Oh, I love it. So good. Okay,
so have you got anything new to suggest for quarantine? Entertainment? No, again, doesn't have to be anything, TV or whatever. Maybe there's a board game that you know of that might be fun.
I don't really board game very much. Sorry. I watch anime. That's what I do, is I watch anime. I'm sorry. That's all I do, and play video games. I'm currently watching the 3rd series of Castlevania, and it's amazing. Absolutely loving it. Oh, Castlevania is so good. So good. And Alucard is just the most gorgeous creature put on the planet. I'm just like, yes, I love you. I love you so much. Everything else I'm watching, I've I'm not at the end of. I'm actually finally like watching some other animes, and whether or not they're good, I don't know yet because I've only watched an episode of them. But I can tell you that Castlevania is good. And when I'm not watching Castlevania, I'm watching horror films. And recently I've watched a lot of shit ones, and I'm very sad. So I don't really want to recommend them because they were awful. So I was like, I've had a bit of a bad luck. The last 3 horror films I've watched were like, oh. And then that's about it. Been watching the new series of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's funny. I like that.
It's very good. Well, we're a series behind America, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yes.
like trying not to look at spoilers online and stuff. But yeah, currently also watching it. But in relation to that, my suggestion is actually a person to watch. And his name, you may or may not know him, Jason Mantzoukas. If I was to say Pimenta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the crazy boyfriend.
The crazy dude.
Yes. So he's been turning up in more and more things.
Yes.
And every
he's
time
in John Wick 3. And I was like, hey,
he's in John Wick 3.
I know you.
Yeah, he's in John Wick 3. He's in The Good Place as Derek.
Yes.
He's in Nailed It as a judge.
Oh.
He was in the Lego Batman movie apparently. Like he's turning up in so many places, and it's just one of those celebrities that you just know you're going to have a good time with him. Like if you were to hear that Jim Carrey was on a show, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hilarious and funny. He's very much the same type of thing. And I was listening to The Good Place, the podcast, as I have suggested before, and they did an episode where he presented it so that Mark Evan Jackson could have a break and be a guest on it instead. Yeah. And it was brilliant. It was a whole different dynamic. You know his voice so well because he's just got this, just really distinctive voice. And you just know that you're going to have a really fun time whenever he's doing anything. So, I watched an interview with him and it was hilarious. So, go on the tube, go on, as in the YouTube, not the actual tube. Don't do that.
Don't go on the tube. Social distancing, people. Social distancing. Yeah. Don't go ride the tube at the moment.
No. Go on YouTube, find some interviews that he's done. Go on Nailed It. Go on Netflix to find Nailed It, is what I was going to say. But yeah, he's great, and I'm just finding that I'm becoming more and more of a fan of his. So he's like our modern day comedian at the moment because he's just a nice guy. He just seems like a really nice guy that you can have a laugh with. So yes, he is my recommendation for this week. Right, social media.
Oh, what shall we blast into today? I don't know. How shall I introduce my social media?
Make a sound.
Jabba 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 jabba. My social media today presented by Jabba the Hutt or the Jabberwocky. So therefore, there we go. We need Jabba the Hutt or a Jabberwocky, and bringing in.
I don't have those things.
Jabba 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 social media. Got a lot of it.
Books and podcasts. Oh my.
Oh my. Everything's Let Zoe Spoil You, pretty much. Unless you want some horror, and then it's beneath your skin. Ooh.
Yes, there will be an advertisement for that coming out on your channel soon as long as.
Yes, I was going to say, can you hurry? Because I need to send you the next episode to have that out this week.
I will do it. I'm sorry. Like I say, I've been tied to Newbie versus Weeaboo recently, uploading old episodes, which you should all go listen to because they're great.
Yes.
Although I will warn that the first 1 or 2 episodes, the sound is terrible. The sound is awful. We've sorted it out now, I hope. But yeah, the first 2, it's tinny and echoey. So listen, but don't think it's going to carry on like that. The sound gets better, I promise. And here's my social media. Your
cat just freaked out in the background. What the f*** was that?
I'm sorry, Luna.
Okay, so yours is coming in on an old ship. A ship or a whale for you. So
that's a really bad whale. And yeah, my social media is random. It's every name I've ever had, and yeah, I'm there. If you want to find me, I'm there. Check me out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for now, it's a weeaboo saying Johnny.
And a newbie saying,
Special flower.